How's that?
Good, good.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see here. All right. As they say, rock and roll, whatever they say. Let's go on with the show. All right. So yes, I am Samantha Winemaker. Everyone refers to me as Dr. Sammy or just Sammy. And I'm delighted to be here, as I mentioned. Can everyone see my screen? I hope okay. There's a picture of a house. Okay, I see someone nodding. Okay, wonderful. So yes, I am a palliative care physician. That means that my specialty cares for people who have non-curable illnesses. And so that's what I do. And this is my care setting. I care for people in their home. Most doctors and nurses are trained in hospital type settings or in clinics. Most of us don't have any training on how to actually provide care in people's homes. So I feel very privileged that since the day I graduated, that I have been going into people's homes and doing house calls, good old-fashioned house calls. I don't ride up with a horse and carriage though. With my black doctor bag, I I just drive on up and go into lots and lots of different areas in the greater Hamilton area. And this would represent a typical home that I would go into. My assessment starts from the time I drive up to someone's home and I get a sense of their neighborhood. And if I visit them a few times, I can start to see the outside of the house tells me a story of whether or not the people inside are doing well or they're not doing well. Little things, you develop a spidey sense, like, is the grass cut? Is the snow shoveled? Was it shoveled the last time I was here? Are the Christmas lights still up in April? Some people leave them up all the time. But, is the garbage taken out? What's in the blue boxes? Are there ashtrays with cigarettes teeming, on the porch? Might that tell me about someone's coping style? Who answers the door? Is it the patient? Was it the patient the first time and now it's a caregiver? And what does the caregiver look like compared to the last time I was there? Are they wearing pajamas at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? And not just the bottom part because they're doing a Zoom meeting and they just have to wear a nice shirt. But I'm talking, was someone wearing pajamas when the last time they were well kept, let's just say. So I guess what I'm trying to share with you is that when I'm in people's homes, when I'm approaching someone's home, it is really very personal and individual. And I get to really know and understand what it's like to be in that person's world. And when I'm inside and I take my shoes off at the front door and I hang my coat up on the banister and I don't wear a lab coat and I have a stethoscope in my purse, but I certainly don't come in looking like a doctor. I look just like a person like me because that's what I am. That I have the privilege of hearing people's very intimate and real stories about what their illness journey has been like. And so after 19 years of being in practice, I've heard just about everything. I've heard the good, the ugly, the scary, the bad. I've heard it all. And it took me, years to realize that I was really privileged to be typically at the end of someone's life and hear about the illness journey that's happened before I came in and what went wrong and what didn't go wrong. And I realized I had a lot to share, that the stories that I've received over, almost 2 decades of working were worth sharing with other people, the kinds of things that would help other people's illness journey go better. Okay. So I'm here to share with you my experience and less about the research and the science of medicine and more about the experience of being a person facing a serious illness. I will say that most times I come to someone's home, this is the way I find people: lost, confused, worried, anxious, scared, confused. They often don't really fully understand what's happened, where they're at now in their illness, and where things are headed. And I scratch. I'm just going to ask people if they want to mute their sound. We hear coughing in the background, but that's okay. So I come into people's homes and unfortunately find most of the people that I meet, the patients and their caregivers, in a state where they are very, very scared and very lost. And it's disappointing because I usually meet people, unfortunately, at the very end of an illness, when they're in their last phase. And so they've had many different doctors and nurses and healthcare providers along the journey. So why would I meet them at the end so confused about where they're at and where they're going? I couldn't really fully understand. Lisa, you have your hand up?
Yes, sorry to interrupt, Dr. Winemaker. Ev now can no longer see if anybody's waiting to join our presentation. So if you do see anybody, if you're able to let them in, that would be appreciated.
There have been people.
You're running the show now, so.
It's okay. There have been people and I've let them in.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay.
No worries. So I'll watch out for them, okay? All right. So I was just saying that when I go meet people, I usually find them really discombobulated. And I think to myself, really, they should have a better handle on things because they've had this illness usually for a while. I can't understand why everyone's feeling so lost. And I've perfected what I call the 11th hour scramble. So this is where I find myself focusing on most of the visits. I thought I was going to be this expert pain and symptom management, but really that part is pretty straightforward. What people are really wanting and looking for and needing is this stuff: an understanding of their diagnosis. They are craving what the big picture of their illness looks like, what the long view or the future of their illness looks like. People are needing to know where they're at in their illness journey. Are they in the beginning? Are they in the middle? Are they closer to the end? Most of my patients don't know what to expect and how things are going to unfold. They have really no sense of a timeline of how much time they have left. They don't know what supports are available to them. I end up describing the different roles of their teams because so many teams have come in and out of their care. They may have a family medicine practice. They may have a specialist like hematology group, an oncology group. They might have a surgical team. They may have lots of different teams involved in their care. And usually I'm untangling who's on first and who's on second. I often offer an explanation of what the family's role is in the illness journey and how to anticipate for the patient and family what types of hurdles they might run into along their illness journey. And if we can predict what the illness is going to look like and how it's going to behave, then we can put plans in place for the what ifs. So, if I think there's going to be problems with having a seizure, which is uncommon, but I'll just throw that out there, then we need to talk about that and put a plan in place just in case that happens at home. If I think that someone might be at risk of a pneumonia, then we need to talk about that and put a plan in place at home just in case. So I spend a lot of time preparing patients and families for what the future of their illness might look like and put action plans in place for just in case things go sideways. And we talk about who to call and when to call for what. So again, every single home I go into, whether a person has referred to me for pain management or for nausea or whatever it is, I can tell you what I know I'm going to be doing in that home is this 11th hour scramble, because I meet so many people who are left so confused about their illness journey. And the problem is that when people are scared and anxious and worried, and when they're in the dark and feel like they're in the twilight zone, that feeds their physical symptoms. And pain is amplified. Insomnia at night is worsened. And so it's really important to acknowledge the mind-body connection, which we cannot argue. That if we are worried and scared and feel in the dark about our illness story, then it's going to come out as more physical symptoms. And so I remember in medical school and my residency and training, we were trained to understand that when people have symptoms, it's not just physical symptoms, that symptoms are influenced by their mood, their finances, their faith, their friendships, their relationships. There are so many other inputs to their physical symptoms. And, in school we say, yeah, just teach me how to treat the physical pain. And we think, oh yeah, that's just the fluff. But in the real world, in my practice, I realize it is so true that we need to deal with what's on people's minds in order to make them feel physically the best that they can be. So I am here today, not because all of you have been invited because you need a palliative care doctor, and guess what? You're all at the end of your illness, and surprise, that is not why I'm here. I am here because my position at the end of people's life, like I said, has shed light on what happens at the beginning and the middle of an illness journey that can go wrong and sideways. And I'm here to warn you in a way, or prepare you with different skills and ideas so that you can be the best that you can be through your entire illness journey. That most of the patients and the families that I meet don't know what they don't know. And I say that respectfully, that there's a way that the healthcare system works that can put patients and families behind the 8 ball, and they don't get all the information they need to truly be in control and in the front seat of their own illness journey. And if we don't offer you that information to be empowered and to know what questions to ask, and your journey will end up feeling like you're just bobbing in the water, sort of floating without an anchor. And then you'll just get on the conveyor belt of the healthcare system and end up just being like a number in a system. So I'm here to help put the person, the human, back into the illness journey. And for many of you, maybe it's going just tickety-boo. But because I've cared for so many people, at the end, I know what can happen that can chip away at people and make them feel that they don't even identify with themselves later in the illness. So we want you to remain you and to remain in control and feel intact along your entire illness journey, whatever that journey is. Okay. So I've come to understand that the patients that I meet, the people that I meet, and the families are walking through their illness journey almost like they're in between very large hedges. Let's say, if we use a maze as an analogy, that when you're in the maze, you just see what's in front of you. You can't tell whether or not, you're going to have to make a right turn or a left turn. You can't tell where you're at in the maze. You don't know where the end of the maze is. It's like you're in a rabbit hole or a foxhole. And what most of my patients are missing is the bird's eye view. So as if you could rise above the maze, in this case, the illness, and look from above and look down and see that the illness actually has a pattern to it. And that if you are interested, doctors have treated most illnesses millions and millions of times. So for people, for example, who have Parkinson's disease, it might be the first time they have Parkinson's disease, but billions of people have had Parkinson's disease before. And there is a well-known roadmap, a well-known pattern to Parkinson's disease. And when you're in the middle of it and you're walking through that illness, you might feel like you're going through hedges. But I can tell you right now that there is a well-documented chapter by chapter Parkinson's disease storyline that is available to patients. And I could name at least 16 or 20 other illnesses that have a progressive nature to them that should not be a mystery for patients when they're diagnosed. There is a pattern to many illnesses that isn't often offered to patients and families. It's usually that doctors and patients and families are so busy in the weeds. They're sorting out a treatment or an investigation or looking at the blood work or, your potassium or your sodium level or your white cell count or your red cell count. We get very busy with the important bits and pieces of the illness journey, but we rarely have the chance to rise up above the illness pieces and look at the big picture of the illness to anchor us, to be our foundation, to help us understand where we're at in this illness. And what most people find when they ask for this information, so if they ask their doctor, I'll just blame doctors for now, can you please help me understand what to expect or what's going to happen or, tell me how things are going to unfold. Doctors get uncomfortable with those questions and they tend to say things like, I'm really sorry, I have no crystal ball. Maybe you've heard this before. Most doctors have said it at least once. So that really grates on me because there is actually a crystal ball for most illnesses. Most illnesses, like I said, have had many and billions of people that have walked the journey before. So where it's sometimes very difficult to give one individual an exact crystal ball, many of these illnesses have a general crystal ball. So even the myeloma journey, with all the different variations of myeloma, the hematologist groups have cared for people with myeloma millions and billions of times, and they could give you a big picture idea of what myeloma looks behaves like. I keep saying melanoma. I'm sorry if I've done that. I meant myeloma. What myeloma looks like, what it behaves like, what are the different features, what are the chapters. They can help you understand where you're at in your myeloma journey, what the next chapter is going to look like. There's lots and lots and lots of stuff that goes in a crystal ball that's available to you. So if you ever are met with this phrase, I don't have a crystal ball, I want you to be invited to respectfully push back, okay? Because if we don't get the information we need, then the illness journey feels more like a ticking time bomb. That many of the patients and families that I meet, when they get all this information way too late in the journey, they feel like they wish they would have had it earlier, that it's just too little too late. And I've had way too many people say to me, what, you're kidding me? I could have known more about this illness earlier. Gosh, maybe I would have made different decisions. I would have used my time differently. Now I feel like I've run out of time and I really wish I had known more earlier. I just assumed that they would give me information when I needed it. But now I realize I should have asked more questions. So when you have an illness that is not lightning. It's not a car accident. It's not a traumatic event. When you have an illness that is chronic and it's going to be with you over the rest of your life, you actually have the benefit of time. You have the benefit of time to use however you want. And time is our superpower. You know, I spoke to someone the other day who had a friend who passed away very suddenly from an accident. And she said to me, she and I were talking because we were talking about the difference between someone leaving this world suddenly versus someone who just gets older naturally, like Queen Elizabeth. What's the difference between Queen Elizabeth, who just died of good old age and frailty? And we talked a lot about the difference between a sudden death versus an expected death from an elderly person, and what are the benefits and what are the burdens of those two scenarios. And most people would agree that, you know, having information about where you're at in your life and approximately, you know, what life is going to look like and the benefit of time gives people the ability to spend their time however they want, without feeling like they're in an illness journey with a blindfold on. So time is the superpower. Most of my patients and their families are looking for a roadmap. So whether it's congestive heart failure, or it's COPD, or it's Parkinson's, or it's ALS, or it's multiple sclerosis, or cystic fibrosis, whether or not it's non-curable cancers, whether or not it's ALS or multisystem atrophy or supranuclear palsy, or if it's pulmonary fibrosis or chronic kidney disease or cirrhosis. These are all illnesses that are not just chronic in nature. These are illnesses that move and change over time. And most people benefit from having a big picture, a map of what this illness is going to look like over time, where they're at on the map, and what to expect going forward. So I have come to realize, after all the patients I've cared for, that most illness journeys are missing the roadmap. People get too busy in the day-to-day acute details of the illness, the treatments, the investigations. And there is rarely an opportunity to rise up and ask about the big picture. And the big picture is the superpower here. Like I said, every single illness has a storyline. The storyline has chapters. An illness has a beginning chapter, maybe a few middle chapters, a more advanced or end chapter, and a terminal chapter. There are chapters in the storybook of each illness, and it is possible to know what are the features of each of those chapters. When am I moving from the first to the second chapter, to the third to the fourth? People depend very heavily on their doctors to give them this information. But I can tell you right now that doctors can be uncomfortable offering the information. And sometimes they're waiting for patients to ask and give them permission to speak openly, honestly, and realistically about their illness journey. Doctors are scared that they're going to make people feel hopeless and helpless and depressed by talking about when they're entering into the more advanced stage of an illness. And patients are being so polite that they don't ask. And so what happens is there's almost like a vortex between the patient and the doctor. and the family and the doctor. And so communication's not happening. And then what happens is things keep going along. And then suddenly someone says, I'm sorry, there's nothing more I can do for you. So it's really important to know that the illness has lots of information that can be offered to you to make you understand what you're dealing with and where you're at in the illness, if you want to know. So that's the caveat that I do want to share with you, is that when I give talks, sometimes people say, well, what if people don't want to know? What if a patient and family don't really want to know the big picture of their illness? What if they want to just take things one day at a time? What if they don't want to know about the future? And what if they don't want to know what the average timeline is? Like, isn't that okay? And I say, yeah, of course. Of course it's okay. Every single person is different with respect to where they're at in wanting to know about the reality of their illness. We all have different styles. And I, as a doctor, need to respect each and every person's style. No one should be forced to know this information if they're not interested. But I feel very strongly that people need to know that there is more information. And the important thing here is that patients and families need to be invited to know more. If they say they don't want to know more, that's fine. But we can't assume that patients are just going to be depressed and hopeless and give up. And so we're not going to invite them. It is the responsibility of doctors to invite patients and families to ask small, medium, and large questions. Even if they can't answer them right on the spot, it is our responsibility to continue to say, please, do you have any questions? Not just about what's happening today, but what's happening tomorrow. Does your mind ever wander into the future and wonder what's going to happen? As your doctor, I want you to know you can ask me these questions. So doctors are very uncomfortable with that kind of soliciting. They get, their comfort is in more of the day-to-day kind of stuff, and less about the big picture conversations. So they don't often revert back to the chapter, the book about the illness, and talk about big picture stuff with their patients. And so I want everyone who's part of this support group to think about, if you haven't already, inviting yourself to have more illness awareness. So what does that mean? We could say, invite yourself to have more illness understanding. Invite yourself to go to your team and to ask more about the big picture of having myeloma, where you might be in the myeloma journey. Some people might ask, what's the average timeline for someone like me in this myeloma journey? What to expect, et cetera, et cetera. These are the scary questions to ask your doctors, but I will tell you that information is the second superpower that people have. Time and information will serve you well. Most of my patients and families tell me that information, for better or worse, is extremely important to them. That even if you ask questions and the information isn't exactly what you wanted to hear, it's okay to have feelings and emotions, and people will and usually adjust to even bad news. But only then can you begin to look ahead, feel, okay, we can do this. I'm grounded now in realistic, truthful information, and now we can plan. When people don't have information, they feel suspended, just floating. So information, for better or worse, is grounding. It helps people feel in control, and you can move forward and you can plan, and you become, like I said, you move from the back seat to the front seat of your own illness journey. So this engagement today is really about sharing with you guys how important it is to invite yourself, invite yourself, invite yourself, invite your family to have as much illness awareness as you possibly can. It is your superpower. Sometimes we go through an illness journey with certain assumptions, like the doctor knows everything. I must be a good patient, so I just have to say yes to everything, or maybe I should just be quiet with a nice smile, come to my appointments looking clean and just be a good patient. You might assume that you might be given information when you need it, so you might not ask. You may think, I have no control over this illness. The myeloma is going to do its own thing, and I just surrender. And many people feel that they're in their illness journey alone, and that the only way to look down the road of an illness journey is to keep a stiff upper lip, be relentlessly hopeful, relentlessly positive, and fight, fight, fight. That they have no permission to be anything else but to be absolutely positive. Because if you're not positive, you're going to dishonor your hope or somehow change the course of your illness journey. So as patients and people, we walk around with these kinds of assumptions when we have a serious illness. But the truth of having a serious illness is that you deserve information right from the start of your illness, that there is a ton of information for you to know, general information about myeloma or any other illness that I mentioned. And the more you can extract information right from the diagnosis and ongoing through the illness, it will serve you better, that you will actually remain in more control of yourself and your life if you have information. And that this information is not going to flow automatically to you, that you actually have to advocate for yourself. And if you can't, you have to have someone in your life who is going to advocate for you, like a family member. Most people cannot walk an illness journey by themselves, and the illness usually has a ripple effect on the people around you. So you need to acknowledge that you have an inner crew, I call it, or a small circle of people in your informal life. And they're as much a part of the illness as you are, that you don't face your illness by yourself. You actually face it with your people. And you may be surprised that you can remain hopeful while being informed along your entire illness journey. That being informed and having realistic, honest, open, truthful information about your entire illness journey does not betray remaining hopeful. People can remain hopeful along the entire illness journey. It's just that the hope will change and will match the reality of your illness. So in the beginning, hope might be for a cure. And then as things move along, people hope to get treatment, hope that the treatment works, hope that the next blood work looks good. And so as the illness moves along, people's hope can balance and recalibrate, but only if at the same time they're asking and getting honest and truthful, realistic information. Hope and reality have to match, or else hope will get stuck in an earlier part of the illness while the reality changes. And this is where I meet people sometimes very close to the end whose hope is stuck earlier on and not realistic. Like someone who maybe is close to being, bedridden, and they're still hoping that the next treatment is going to cure their illness. So that's an example of hope and the reality being mismatched. It means that someone didn't properly shepherd this patient with reality through their illness so that this natural hope can ebb and flow and change over time. So hope is absolutely incredible. You do not have to remain toxically positive to remain hopeful. To remain hopeful, you need to have realistic information so that naturally your hope can go left and right and match where you're at in your illness journey. There came a time in my career, not that long ago, maybe about 5 years ago, where I was so frustrated. I had been teaching healthcare providers for years. Heads up, everyone. We need to communicate a certain way with patients and families. I felt like I would climb on top of a mountain and scream as loud as I could. Your patients and your families are needing more information. They're missing the roadmap. They're not understanding where they're at in their illness and what's going to happen. And we're setting them up for a very problematic illness experience. And I have spent years and years and years teaching healthcare providers. And I can tell you that
How do you feel about not putting it on speaker?
the dial is moving a little bit, but it's not moving fast enough. So a few years ago, my partner, CN Siao, who is a researcher, and I got together and we said, we cannot wait any longer. We cannot wait any longer to let citizens know that there are things about having a serious illness that will serve them well, that is not going to come automatically to them when they get this new role called being a patient, a new role called being a caregiver, that those don't come with a script. They don't come with a job description, that patients and families step on the conveyor belt of being a patient or a caregiver. And they just start, going along the journey, that we wanted to tell citizens of the world, there's a way to be a patient and a caregiver and a family member that will improve your illness journey right from the beginning and throughout. And so the two of us got together and we taped this podcast that was mentioned at the beginning called The Waiting Room Revolution. And it's as easy as listening to the radio. If you would like it to listen to season 1, that's the one with the heart of it, with the biggest bang for its buck. You will learn all sorts of skills that will help you be a more in the know patient and family, as opposed to in the dark or blindfolded. So we put it out in a podcast, and I have the link for you in a bit. And we talk about the 7 keys that we have realized that patients and families would benefit from. And so even though I am a palliative care doctor and I work more towards the end of an illness experience, like I said, my unique vantage point down there has allowed us to listen to people's stories earlier on in the journey. And we have realized that there's 7 things that patients and families can do differently way upstream, way at the beginning of the illness and throughout the illness, that we don't want people, going through their illness, ending up in a later chapter and feeling like they don't recognize themselves anymore, that we want you to remain you through your illness journey with all the twists and turns. And so there are 7 keys that we describe in our podcast. And so I'm going to go just quickly through each one of them. The first one is called Walk 2 Roads. What does that mean? That is about sharing with people that you can hope for the best and plan for the rest at the exact same time. It's this idea I talked about that you don't only have to be hopeful to get what you need, that it's protective to toggle back and forth, hoping for the best, planning for the rest. hoping for the best, planning for what if things don't work out your way, hoping for the best, planning for if things go sideways, or there's a curveball, or you have to make a right turn or a left turn or a U-turn. So it's really important that people go through their journey, not just positive and hopeful, but they're also trying to get a sense of the reality of their illness and walk those two roads together. That's really, really an important skill. And we talk about how to do that. The second key is we teach people how to zoom out. It's like what I said at the beginning, instead of feeling like you're in the rabbit hole every time and just day to day and you can't really see ahead of you, we teach people how to zoom out, rise above, and to get the big picture and the long view of their illness. The third key is we remind people how to understand their own style and the style of the people in their family with quotations, your inner crew, that there are things that you know about you. The doctor knows about the illness or the disease, but you know you, and you can go through your history of being you, and you can ask yourself, when you ran into trouble in the past, what coping styles did you use, for better or worse? What worked for you? What didn't work when you went through that divorce, or you got fired from that job, or you were faced with another health problem? The way you have moved through hurdles in your life will prepare you to know yourself and how you're going to move through these hurdles. There's a lot about you that you can remember and know, almost like looking in a mirror, that will help predict how you're going to go through this serious illness. People don't change that much. People usually go through their illness the same way that they've gone through other challenges in their life. And so it's not meant to change people or say there's one perfect style. But when you know yourself well, you won't surprise yourself. You won't surprise yourself that you are someone who likes to hide your head in the sand, if that's what you've done your whole life. You won't surprise yourself that your sister doesn't come to visit you much, even though you're unwell, because your sister's always been like that. So this whole key is basically suggesting that the doctors can know the illness, but you know you and you know your family, and there is a ton that can help shine light on what you're going to be like in this illness. The fourth key is customize your order. And this is about teaching people how to make sure you don't feel like you're on a conveyor belt. That even though there are standard care algorithms and treatments and the usual care, we use the analogy like wearing a school uniform. If you look at a schoolyard where kids are wearing a school uniform, you can still see that everyone wears their uniform a little bit differently. You can nip and tuck and sew and change your uniform. Everyone's wearing a uniform, but there are ways to customize your journey through your illness, even though there is sort of a conveyor belt going on around you. Number 5 is we warn people, expect the ripple effect. So like I said before, the patient is the spotlight. They're the star of their own illness journey, but it's really important for us to acknowledge that we usually have people in our life that either we live with or that love us or are around us. And everyone's illness has a natural ripple effect on the people around them. And we don't want to wait until someone's in the shadows, like looking unwell and, putting their hand up and saying, I count too. We talk about how this is a family affair. There's usually a unit of care, not just a person who requires care and attention. There's more than one person who's affected by any illness. In the 6th key, we talk about tag your it. And basically, this is about warning citizens that if you ever have a serious illness, guess what? you're going to have to play a crucial role in connecting the dots of the system. There is no perfect medical system out there that connects all the doctors and nurses and pieces of information together. And naturally, we just warn people before it's too late, you're probably going to have to be the manager of your own illness journey, or have someone in your life who's going to step up as your CEO. And we talk about what that's going to look like. And last but not least, we invite people to find their voice. We do not want passive, good, polite, quiet patients coming to the healthcare system. It makes it way too easy for the healthcare system. We teach people that they can be respectfully assertive and make sure that they get what they need so that they get out of their healthcare system and their illness journey what they need as an individual. And we invite people, like I said a million times already, to go from the back seat of their illness journey to the front seat of their illness journey. And we're hoping that if we can give these skills to millions and billions of citizens, that naturally you will come to the healthcare system with a new vibe and a new mojo about you, a new energy about you, and that the healthcare system is just going to have to change. They're going to have to accommodate patients and families who are more empowered and want to know and are seeking the reality and the truths. And so doctors are going to have to learn how to do that. And so we're hoping to set a fire, a wildfire of patients coming to the system with new questions. And so those are the 7 keys to make sure that your illness journey is less reactive, unaware, unprepared, that you feel less unsure, and that it's generic and overwhelming and frustrating and scary. And instead, you can feel that you're prepared, informed, confident, that your journey's tailored to who you are, that you feel in control, in charge, and hopeful the entire time. So we want patients and families to feel more balanced. I'm hoping over time I won't meet people at the end of their journey who feel that they would have done it differently. And I'm hoping that you will leave today feeling not scared, but empowered to step forward. We've turned all this information into a book. We've titled it, no surprise, Hope for the Best and Plan for the Rest. It's not about palliative care. It's not about the end of an illness. This is a book that is our gift to citizens, to basically say, you guys deserve a roadmap. You deserve a handbook for going through a serious illness. All the things that they're not going to tell you, what happens behind the white curtains, and the things that you're left reading between the lines. Is that what they're saying? I'm not understanding the meaning of that today. This is a book for you. It's a gift from myself and from Dr. Cien Xiao. We're tired of people getting half bits of information. You deserve more. There is a QR code here, which it might be too dark. You can hover your phone, your camera over it. And if you take your phone and you go on the photos or the camera and you just hover over that, you will get a link to our website called the Waiting Room Revolution. And if you sign up for our listserv, like our newsletter, which comes out every Tuesday, you will be eligible for some of the first books that come out. This is going to be on the shelves on September the 19th. It's already written. This is the cover. It's all done, but it's not going to hit the shelves till the September 19th. But if you sign up for our listserv on the Waiting Room Revolution website, then we will make sure that you get the first books and possibly before September 19th. And we're probably going to try to give people a discount as well. So again, it's not available right now, but it is done and it's coming, and I just can't wait. And it has nothing to do with my finances, because I make royalties in the amount of probably 0.000000000. I might be able to buy a coffee if 1 billion of these are sold, which would be great. This is, for me, my legacy. If something happened to me tomorrow, I know that I have left the population of people with things that I have learned that I feel are critical for you guys. And so that's what this book is for me. I'm just so grateful that we got to do it and that it's done. And again, if something happens to me, it's all there in the book. So I'm just so thrilled. It's like when you finish your resume, like you're just so happy that it's done. It's like, oh, wow, that's wonderful. So here's the QR code again. And Dr. Xiao and I are starting a revolution called the Waiting Room Revolution. Our website is thewaitingroomrevolution.com. There's going to be lots of information there. You may be interested in following us or me on social media. I'm taking a little break right now, but I'm very, very busy on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, if you can believe it. And I give little bits and pieces of information that are helpful for patients and families. So the podcast and the book and the social media is all about shifting from teaching only healthcare providers, oh, you guys, we have to really do it this way. Nope, I'm done with that. I've gone public. I've gone public to help anyone and everyone to understand that all of us one day are going to get something, even me. If I'm not struck by lightning, I'm going to get something. No one escapes this world alive forever. I'm either going to end like Queen Elizabeth, I'm going to get struck by lightning, or at some point in my life, I'm going to get an illness that is progressive. I don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be ALS? Is it going to be heart failure? I don't know, but I know that I'm not going to live forever. And I have high mortality awareness, which frees me up to live my best life. And I can tell you one thing, I have cared for so many people at the end of life from every kind of illness. Guess what? I am not scared of the end. I am not. And I don't want to be gone. I'm not ready. But when my time comes, I'm going to know it's coming. Because I have eyes wide open and I'm not scared. I have seen what it looks like, and I've seen it all. And so that's the beauty of being sort of woke and eyes wide open to the fact that, we're only here for whatever time we have, and we need to get real about living and dying. But this presentation isn't about dying. This presentation is about living, and living with a serious illness, and that there are things you can do to make sure that your illness matches who you are, your illness journey, okay? And that you don't feel like you're lost. And that's what today was about. And I think that's the end. And so I am going to stop sharing and hand it back to Lisa and Ev.
Thank you so much, Dr. Winemaker, or Sammy, as you said at the beginning. That was fantastic. I have 2 pages of notes, and I'm really thrilled with certainly a lot of the key phrases that you talked about. And I think the important one for me is living my best life. And I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. That's, I think, what we want. So thank you for sharing. I know we've got a number of folks that would love to ask some questions. As we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, we are going to record it so that it can be shared. So I'm not questions that you may have may be what many others have as well. So if you're okay being videoed, that's okay. Leave your camera on, or if you don't want to, use the chat option. I know there's a question in there or two already, but we'll proceed with the Q&A give about 15 minutes if that's okay, Sammy, with your time.
Oh yeah, I have it. Look, I'm here till, I think we said 3.
Yeah, okay. So we'll see how we go, folks. So if you have a question or if you just want to speak up, you can either raise your hand using the reactions and then we can come to you, or we could, I know that there's one chat question there. Let's see if I can get it here. Yes, from Brian. So he asked, can you expand more about the mind, body, and diet connection to treating an illness?
Yeah, that's a big question. And it says here, and can you provide more information where to find resources to learn more about this topic? Yeah. So, I can tell you that I have, I meet so many, I'm so lucky to meet so many people in my career. And, I would say that to learn more about the mind and body, there's a whole area called mindfulness that probably many of you have heard about. It's like a whole discipline. It's huge. There isn't one resource, but if you just use the search term mindfulness, when you either go to the library or Google, or there's tons and tons of information on how to be more mindful, which is basically, pausing and checking in with yourself. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How is this affecting me? What's my reaction here? Why did I say that? It's like looking inwardly. A mindful practice is very, very important and can be very meditative. And so, because the way we speak and behave and the things that we do are directly connected with our emotions and the way we feel. And so to be able to understand how the mind and body work together, how things about your body affect your mind and things in your mind affect your body is very powerful. And I see it, in play every day in my practice. I get called, like I said, for all sorts of things. My wife isn't sleeping well. She's waking up at night. Do you have something to help her sleep? And it's always, for me, the first thing I do is ask the person, what's on your mind? What's on your mind? It's usually not that the person needs something to sleep. They need to connect with what's on their mind, and they need to share and explore what's happening up here that's making them wake up. So again, it's really important in my practice to make sure that I untangle those different pieces so that we're not just ordering medication for every physical symptom when something's presented. And then in terms of diet, again, that's a whole discipline in itself as well. I have lots and lots of patients who, ascribe to lots of different ways of eating. And I would be dishonest if I knew the one resource that was the miracle resource for any kind of illness. I think taking care of yourself is hugely important, your mind and your body. But I'm big on moderation for everything. Moderate eating, moderate exercise, moderate mindfulness, so I don't really have a great answer for Brian in terms of one resource for mind, body, and diet connection. But I think the fact that Brian's asking, it's a really good sign that Brian's got a healthy approach to his situation for sure.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has a question? I don't see any more in the chat, but if anybody would like to ask a question, by all means.
I'd love to hear from people if anything rubbed you the wrong way, or if anything made you worried what I said, or I don't want you to leave this session today feeling alarmed. You're welcome to share an experience or a communication fumble.
Oh, Andrea. Oh, you're muted, Andrea.
There, okay, it takes me a couple minutes. I just wondered how often, you didn't specifically mention it, but how often you see people that feel that they're way more vulnerable or way more ill than they are.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I would say I feel broken and I feel so vulnerable because, you know, I keep putting, when I started this illness, I read a really good Time magazine article from a few years back on, that multiple myeloma is really more of a chronic illness now. It's not the same as it was because we have medications and that. So I keep trying to wrap my head around saying, okay, I'm just the same as anybody with diabetes or heart disease, COPD or anything like that. But it feels different. You know, I don't, with the multiple myeloma, I think it's just that idea that vulnerability could be taken out at it, no matter what you do, unless you want to live in a bubble, then you're not really living, that you could be taken out at any time from an infection. And I find that I feel I'm sicker than my doctor thinks, because she's like, well, you're stable now. Look how good you are. Remember when you first came in? And to her, it's like all hunky-dory, everything's going great, you know? And I wish I could just, in my mind, accept that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel too broken and vulnerable to get there. And I'm wondering how common that is, that you hear that, or I don't know if it's something more specific to multiple myeloma, or is there, you know, is there that roadmap to get to, like, I just want it to become old, you know, like, no big deal, just let it go. But where's the roadmap for that? I'd love to have that.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate how candid you are with your own situation. You know, a lot of people do tell me when they have had something big, that even when they have treatment and, you know, things are stable and good, they have a really hard time letting go or exhaling, that they, it was such a crisis and so alarming. And, you know, it's hard to get rid of that tense feeling where you've had to lean into this scary experience, and it's hard to let go of that and just cruise. People find it difficult to cruise. Cruising is real. It's like moderation. It's like really hard just to be, you know? And so it's hard to let go of feeling like you're in a crisis and over the other side of it, and live your best life. It's difficult. I've heard from lots of people. I would also say that people can feel lost and broken and unwell when they're scared and anxious and worried about, you know, the shoe dropping or the next hurdle. And that's when I encourage people to do what you did, which is to go to your doctor and to say, can we review things? This is the way I'm feeling. And I'm really interested because I know, doctor, you have cared for so many people with myeloma. And I know there's different types of myeloma. and you can't tell me exactly, but I know you've done this before, and I'm feeling really worried. I'm feeling unstrung. And so I'm looking to you, doctor, to have a really open, honest discussion with me, and I'm giving you permission to really speak the truth to me. It's important to me, and it's helpful. And it might be uncomfortable for you, and you might worry that you're going to make me upset or sad if we talk about it. It could be this, it could be that, or whatever. But I want it straight up, no sugar. Okay, doctor. And the reason is because blah blah. So the more you invite your doctor to just speak openly with you, Andrea, the more you're going to get more information. And it might be that you get information that makes you feel a lot better. Okay. But we don't want the teams to just placate things and say, oh, now, you're just being Andrea. Come on, Andrea, stiff upper lip. Come on, be positive. No, that's all very helpful. Thank you for being my cheerleader, doctor. But I'm here really to talk about, like, I'm feeling I'm floating around, like I'm not feeling well. And you're telling me I should feel well. So I'm missing pieces here. So, we actually, we have a podcast episode with a hematologist who specializes in myeloma. I believe her name is Dr. Mira Hiran, or, oh my goodness. Lisa, do you remember her name?
I think that was very similar to that. Yes.
She's a beautiful
Yeah.
hematologist, and we do a whole 60-minute episode on communication around myeloma and, the whole myeloma journey. And I would invite you to go to our Waiting Room Revolution, look up the podcast. I can't remember what season it is. It's not season 1 and it's not season 2. So it's got to be season 3 maybe. And she talks all about myeloma. But I would say that listen to your body, Andrea, and and get the information that you keep going, be persistent. Okay. If you feel like you're stuck, get information. It will unstick you. Okay.
Great. I'll look up that name and circulate it to the group. I didn't get it quickly enough, but
Yeah, I'm going to look it up.
yeah.
I have a question, but I don't know how to use the hand signal.
Oh, that's okay.
It's Margaret. I'm really new to this journey, and initially I first heard in the summer, and then initially was told to be very prepared for the possibility of a stem cell transplant. And then consequent tests came back different than what the doctor expected. So 2 weeks before Christmas, I was told that to expect another MRI and a PET scan because they found spots in different places that weren't in the initial diagnostic test. My question is, I'm sitting here, I'm still waiting to hear even for a date to get these tests done. And I don't know if I'm being impatient, or I understand just from watching the news, there's, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough machines, we don't have enough of everything. So I don't know who to go to say. And I've talked to these wonderful people who run this group who were very helpful, but they too, like, what is a realistic expectation for timelines when you're waiting for these tests and trying to remain hopeful, like Andrea was saying, sometimes I just go into denial mode and just, that's how I'm functioning. And then, if you wake up to go to the washroom, it hits you and you can't sleep. So what's a realistic expectation, or do you have that information? I want to be assertive, but I don't want to be a nuisance where they're going to get fed up with me asking questions.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, don't worry about people getting fed up. Don't worry about being a nuisance. You have the right to be you, and you can nudge And as long as you're respectfully assertive, as opposed to, accosting, then I would say persist, persist, persist. But we can't get water from a stone, right?
Mm.
It is true that we're in a very unique time through COVID and through this phase of such a backlog. You're right. And I can say, Margaret, that you are an example of someone who is suspended right now. This is why we called our revolution, the waiting room revolution, was exactly because of people like you waiting. People waiting, either waiting literally in a waiting room, which is a horrible experience, or waiting for information, or waiting for a test. I don't have an answer for you, Margaret, but what I can say is that you're an example of what I said is information is power. It's almost like bring it on. Like, let me get my tests, let me get the information, because then I can land on my feet, and whether it's good or bad, I will have a plan and I can figure this out. So just know that it would be expected for you to feel completely discombobulated and out of sorts right now, because you're in the twilight zone. So my best advice is, for you to look for things that you do know that are concrete in your life that can make you feel grounded while you're waiting
Right there.
for
Right there.
more information to come, because I don't know if you will be able to speed things up, but I do think that you should tell your teams how you're feeling, and that I realize that I'm waiting X, Y, and Z, but I'm not doing well while I'm waiting. I'm not doing well. I'm feeling anxious. I'm not sleeping. I'm so worried. And I can't, it would be normal, Margaret, if you feel like you just can't make plans for what you're going to have for dinner. That's what all my patients and families tell me, that when they have no information, it's worse than having bad information. Not that that's what you're going to get, but it's like this, bring it on. It's like,
You want your binoculars?
so
Camera?
waiting. Someone on the phone
Yes,
Yeah.
display here.
has joined us and might want to put their phone on mute. Sorry.
All right.
So Margaret, I
I'll
don't,
stay here while you figure it.
the only answer I have for you really is to tell your healthcare providers why, share with them what you're feeling. Tell them why you need this information, and know that you are in good company, Margaret, and that it is okay, not okay, but it is expected that you're feeling completely unstrung. You will feel better once you get information. And you know what? It's probably groups like this that probably have even better tips for you, because they've worked the system over and over. Oh, I would open it to the group here if anyone else has any suggestions for Margaret.
Thank you.
Can I just ask Margaret if she is in the London area? I found from my experience that I first of all worked in the imaging department for a decade or so, but I found that when I let my doctor's office or the image department know that I'm available during the day or evening and are more flexible, I got my appointment within days.
I did that, but I had an appointment, and then I called them and said, I can come in any cancellation, anytime, day or night, and that did work. My problem right now is I haven't even got an appointment. I've been waiting since December 14th, and I haven't received a call or anything, and it's been a long time, and I can respect that we had a holiday in there, but like I said, I just didn't know if this is normal.
No, it is not. I would call them back. It is not.
I would too. Thank you, Jan. Get on the phone. Like, honestly, I guess the point is, don't be passive. Don't worry about what people think about you. This is your life. This is you. This is your body. You find your voice and get on the phone. Call your family doctor, ask the family doctor to advocate on behalf of you. Call the hospital, call the clinic, call wherever you want. Do not be shy. I feel sorry when people feel that they're going to get, something in their chart that says, oh, this is a really difficult person. Margaret, I can tell you're not a difficult person. You keep going, persist.
Thank you.
Yeah. And feel invited and feel that it is your right. It is your right to persist and find out when that appointment's going to be.
Sammy, I hope that you give these talks to family doctors, because when I went to mine for another issue, and she said, is there anything else? And I said, well, I have my myeloma diagnosis. Her words were to me that we were not going to discuss that because I had specialists, and if she were to discuss it with me, it would just be more confusing. So I respect that she probably was uncomfortable dealing with it, and I don't need your comment on that. I just hope that you are talking to family doctors as well, because I could handle that, but I can think of a lot of people that couldn't. I have other people to talk to. So anyways,
Do you want your binoculars?
Thank you so much.
Margaret, that's a horrible response from the doctor. And if not anything else, a doctor can listen and hear how a person is doing with their new diagnosis and what's on their mind, and that we're in this together. And that I will get notes from the specialist, but you and I have known each other for a long time, Margaret. I know what you're like. I know your family. Know that the communication lines are open. I might not have all the answers for you, but I'm here for you. So I don't have to be a hematologist. I personally, to be honest with you, I'm a palliative care doctor. I don't know a lot about myeloma, but I can tell you that I can bring my therapeutic self to any person with myeloma's story. I did put in the chat, Dr. Hira Mayan is the oncologist in the episode. We interviewed her. She was incredible. If you want to see that one. So Margaret, keep going. Don't let your family doctor off the hook. I'd say get a new one, but that's really hard.
Thank you. I'm just cognizant of the time. We're actually almost at 3 o'clock. It seems like we just started, but is there maybe one last question from anyone?
I think Bridget posted a question in the chat.
Okay, great. Let's see.
Yeah, so
yes.
I can see the question is how acceptance of the disease played into an effective treatment process. So that's a good question. I would say the words I use are reality-based experience. So the more, anytime you get news, and if it's not the news you want, there is a period of adjustment. And typically people will come to some degree of acceptance, whatever that means, over a period of time and be able to move through bits and pieces of information. Being brave enough to get honest, open information will help people accept where they're at in their illness and be able to plan the next steps. If we hide our head in the sand and never want information, then you're less likely to come to a point of acceptance, if that's the goal, and move forward. I would say I don't use the word acceptance much because, you might never accept the fact that something's happened to you. So I don't think necessarily the goal is acceptance. You don't have to like it, but I think you need honest, real information so that you can move forward, whether you accept having the illness or not. you need a chance to have your eyes wide open instead of falling into different landmines. So it's an interesting question.
That's wonderful. Well, I think we're almost out of time. Ev, if you can clarify with me, do we still have time for just our group to chat, or are we done at 3?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.